All right, yeah, I think we're about to ready to get started, if you are. Good evening, everyone. I have no disclosures. So I had an evening spare and thought I'd cure HIV. This is a short seminar on that topic. Here we have the HIV virus. Don't worry, you won't be going heavy into the immunology. Everyone, even the general public, has the basics down. So it's a T-cell mediated, predominantly entry into the cell. Antiretroviral therapies can't entirely clear it, although they are doing a good enough job for the population level. I'll get to that in a moment. It's reverse transcribed. As I said, I won't go too far into this stuff. Eventually causing cell death, then you're more likely to be susceptible to all other infections, and which of course is when you get your AIDS-type syndromes from the virus. So I've included some novel things just to try and keep it light. I know for most of this crowd, none of this stuff will be particularly novel, but just in case. So there are some people that have super immune systems that we know about. So they just, even with an HIV infection, they keep a handle on it. Their body just handles it, and it's fine. It's not entirely understood. It's a CD8 mediated probability is the leading theory, but we don't know why. And we're looking into it, just like we are with the genetically immune. So some people are born, I won't get into the genetics too far either, nobody panic, but they're just immune to HIV due to changes to the entry site. So they just can't catch it. They can never catch the virus. Again, something that we are looking into for a cure potential, maybe with gene therapy, with people who are currently suffering. I've just got one point here on PrEP and PEP, that should be, not PUP. So PrEP is your prophylactic exposure therapy. PEP is your post-exposure emergency cover. But there are so many options. These are very well-tolerated drugs. You know, there can be some renal impairment. Any medication should be taken carefully. There's some bone density issues, but for the most part, and particularly compared to the alternative, you can take them 2 hours before, if you know it's going to be a big weekend, and then just a few days after. You can take them every day, as many do in the queer community. I've just got a point here because patients have brought this up before. You can't just, after a high-risk activity, take your PrEP at a higher dose or anything like that. It's a slightly different cocktail, and it will not work the same way the post-72-hour post-exposure does. But what's most important here is the UU concept. So this is that these drugs are so good now. So even though we had some missteps, famously, some of the Salk team had an adenovirus vector vaccine, which actually caused people to catch more HIV rather than making them immune. But the testing, including the home kits, are so accurate now, both sensitivity and specificity. If it says yes, it's within the window. Obviously, early viral replication is high, and otherwise seroconversion can be tested between 3 and 6 months. And beyond that, everything should still be laboratory confirmed. But this UU concept, with these drugs being so good that we can get viral replication down to the point where it's undetectable and untransmissible, these results are so robust. We've done massive studies of people not having protected sex and with 0 cases of known transmission if a patient they do have HIV, they are HIV positive, but they're in the UU category and they're medication compliant. This is revolutionary. It should have been immediately. This is a global cure. And also, I've just made the point here, it counterintuitively means if you're intimate with someone who you know for certain is HIV positive, but they are medication compliant and they're in the UU category, which, you know, replication is impaired significantly, even in the first week. 95 to 98% of patients will be in the UU category within 6 months of starting the medications. So it means if you're intimate with someone who you know is HIV positive, but they are medication compliant, you're actually safer and less likely to catch HIV than you would be with a random hookup who's just a person, but you don't know their status, and neither do they, because why would they've ever tested? And I think that is a remarkable thing, and an important thing for stopping discrimination and why the disclosure laws being the way they are, meaning that you generally don't have to disclose under almost any circumstance your status, because it takes two. It's the other person's responsibility to be responsible for their own health. So this is just a little bit more on the genes if you're interested. The Delta 32. This is the CD8 super controllers, or elite controllers. So it's rare. It's less than 1% of the infected. We're not clear on the mechanism. There is a strong CD8 T cell response, but we don't know. And also, it's rare to catch anyway, which is why it tends to take repeat exposures of high-risk activities. So I'll get to some of the actual rates after the next slide. This is just covering some of the things that I covered in the beginning. 95 to 98% of people with HIV who are taking the modern ART therapies, which are integrase inhibitor-based regimes, and as long as they are actually adherent, they achieve viral suppression within 6 months, enough to be in the UU state, the undetectable, untransmissible. It's been validated in multiple large cohort studies, with zero-link transmissions among thousands of serodiscordant couples during sex with no condom, including oral and anal acts. So I just think that is so important to hammer home. So when the virus is so delicate, it's easily destroyed by environment, oxygen, many things in the saliva. These are the risk rates for activity. We're talking even receptive anal sex is 1%. 1 in 100, right, from a single event. From insertive oral, which is if you're giving head, there's too many zeros in front of that. Fractions of a percent, right? So it's already kind of difficult to catch. So when we also have these medications which reduce it to essentially zero, as do condoms, bring it to near zero, just put some similar things which are in the same risk profile category, particularly if you're UU on ART therapy. It's the same risk as dying in a car crash on the way to the hookup, or riding in an elevator, or getting struck by lightning, literally. From oral sex in particular, you're more likely to be killed in your lifetime by a dog attack. I mean, it is really remarkable that we haven't already created a world where this is no longer a possible epidemic. But it's not the case. And so why is that? And so I've highlighted the reasons here. Gilead, Johnson & Johnson, Merck, Abbey, they own licenses and should not, is simply what it is. The MPP license is kind of a middle ground where we'll print money and just give it to them, similar to the COVID relief package, and similar to what's done even in Australia with Medicare, with the PPS. So instead of enforcing that these companies don't make thousands of millions of dollars a year, keeping people sick, what we do instead is the government will print the money and we'll pay the difference. And so maybe it'll cost $8 to the patient, which is still great, but the company still gets to grift, and that encourages bad behavior. It's a moral hazard. These are the medication cocktails here, and this is how much they actually cost per day, right, to manufacture. So we're talking 7 cents, 3 cents, right, a day to treat patients to the point where they can no longer transmit the virus. So why has anyone even heard of HIV in this generation? So the MPP program, which still isn't good enough, has all kinds of caveats, and a lot of the money is still made in the West. Even if you have a public HIV epidemic, like in some Indigenous and First Nation groups, this is true in Australia, particularly in the Northern Territory, but it changes in Canada. That's just not, it just is not allowed. Newer agents. So I never believe this idea that it's more education and we can't reach certain population groups. Nah, there are some injectable depot style treatments where maybe once a month or perhaps even once every 6 months, potentially, you could just have one injection and then you would not have to worry about it. It would not be transmissible. Or if we wanted to go prophylactically, there's no reason to think that that wouldn't be possible too. there's a lock-in even under MPP. So certain countries can't export to different areas. For example, there are certain drugs which can be exported to South Africa, for example, but not Brazil. There's no reason to allow any of these things to continue. It's not our job to make money for this company. Like, it's just absolutely unbearable. So I showed you on the last table, it's cents on the dollar. But we're getting charged $70, this is in US dollars, per day, right? When it's less than 20 cents. And even the new injectable is locked at $20,000 per year, when it costs less than $2 to make. So again, I hope you're seeing the pattern here. This is the real reason that, you know, I do these things almost jokingly, like, what should the topic be tonight? Well, how about I try and cure HIV or cure cancer? But when you look into it, the fact that this is all, the UU status changes so much. And this is the reason why. When you're making thousands of millions of dollars per year, so look at the highlighting in the pink on the right-hand side, this is what they make just from HIV drugs alone every single year. So this is at 70% of Gilead's total profit. Their $30 billion there comes just from making sure people stay on these medications for life. Viv, which is a GSK sub, 100% of their thousands of millions of dollars every single year comes from HIV medications. So when you're dealing with numbers like that, where is the motivation to properly see this cured in one generation? In our lifetimes, one generation is only 25 years. It could easily be done, and it's not, I believe, for this reason. There's really no other explanation. So this is just double checking to make sure that this is a cocktail combination that can actually get you to the UU status, so you can't transmit. And these all are. Not all of them are even on an MPP license. But again, we're talking 13 cents, 16 cents, okay? Within 6 months, they would not be able to transmit HIV. So what are the limitations here? So it's curable within 6 months, essentially, thanks to breakthroughs. And since there's no animal reservoir, within one generation, there should be no HIV anywhere in the world. So what's the problem? Well, the problem is capital, as it often tends to be. Patients on lifelong medication is a good business model. Curing patients so they don't need to buy your drug every year is not. Now, I'm not going to, again, start ranting about this is why it has to be strict enforcement or they should be nationalized, but that is the case. So other limitations, you can get some strain resistance to the treatments, even within patients, if there's non-compliance, because we are still not yet able to entirely clear the virus from someone once they're infected. And if there was a known animal reservoir, and it wasn't, and it is actual spillover, it could return, but again, the same model, in principle, should be able to be applied. If it was a gain-of-function lab leak that accidentally only happened to hit targeted minority communities, there's certainly no historical reasons why that would be possible, so I don't know why that's on there. The last point that I had on there was just a general misunderstanding. MMT is modern monetary theory. And this is the idea that anything in your own currency, all that matters is true resources. A lot of the countries where HIV is still particularly at epidemic levels manufacture these drugs at cents on the dollar, but they're being sold, or the poor and impoverished indigenous communities are being neglected. We could concentrate funding. It could be a job guarantee program, another MMT thing, free science education if you're doing this kind of research, jobs at the labs. We could even, although this is a little bit harder, a little bit too fast perhaps, but we could enforce it to be a physician. You have to have spent 1 year working in doing grunt work in a lab. So the point is, I set aside, because I had an evening spare, I thought I might cure HIV AIDS, and I have. Thank you for everyone who listened to this. My Twitter handle is at Jai, _ Cilento, Cilento. It'll be in the notes. And the quite honourable Jack Ross, JACROSS, on the gram, if you have any follow-up questions.